Captain Gregory Mason stood on the bridge of the Liberty and watched the stars bend around his ship. After 200 years of dreaming, humanity had finally broken free from their solar system. They had built 3 new worlds beyond Earth, and now they were ready to meet whatever waited for them in the darkness. Gregory was 42 years old, with gray starting to show in his dark hair. He had spent 20 years in space, but nothing had prepared him for this moment. His first officer, Diana Harper, stood beside him. She was younger, only 30, with sharp eyes that missed nothing. "Captain, we're picking up a signal," said Paul Chen from the engineering station. "It's artificial. Someone is out here." Gregory felt his heart race. This was it. After searching for so long, humanity was not alone. The signal led them to a massive ship 3 times the size of the Liberty. It was beautiful, made of some silver metal that seemed to glow in the starlight. As they watched, the alien ship sent a message in perfect English. "Greetings, humans. We are the Krell Dominion. We welcome you to the galactic community." The next 6 months passed like a dream. The Krell seemed perfect. They were tall beings with silver scales and yellow eyes that gleamed with intelligence. Their ambassador Vekran visited Earth and spoke to the United Nations. He promised friendship, technology, and protection. "The galaxy can be dangerous," Vekran told the human leaders. "But with the Krell as your friends, you will be safe. We have watched over 70 worlds for 1,000 years. Let us watch over you as well." The humans wanted to believe. After generations of being alone, the idea of having powerful friends filled them with hope. Trade agreements were signed. The Krell shared some of their technology. Human scientists like Dr. Henry White worked alongside Krell engineers and marveled at what they learned. "This will change everything," Henry told Gregory one evening. "With Krell help, we could have 10 colonies within a decade, 20 within a generation." Gregory wanted to share that optimism, but something bothered him. The Krell were always friendly, always helpful, but he never felt like he truly knew them. It was like watching actors perform a play. Everything was too perfect, too careful. Diana Harper felt it too. "Sir, have you noticed they never let us visit their military bases?" she asked quietly. "Every time we ask, they have a reason why we cannot go." "Maybe they are just private people," Gregory suggested. But he did not believe his own words. The invitation came on a cold morning in March. Vekran stood in the UN Assembly and extended an offer to humanity. The Krell wanted to hold a great ceremony on their capital world, Krell Prime. 200 humans would be invited as honored guests to celebrate the friendship between their peoples. Gregory was chosen to lead the delegation. Claire Bennett, Earth's top diplomat, would handle the formal negotiations. Commander Lisa Grant would represent the military. Dr. Henry White would discuss scientific cooperation. 200 of Earth's best and brightest prepared to make the journey. "I wish I was going with you," Diana said the night before departure. She would stay behind to command the Liberty. "Someone needs to keep the ship safe," Gregory told her with a smile. "Besides, we will only be gone for 2 weeks. What could possibly happen?" The journey to Krell Prime took 8 days. When they arrived, Gregory was stunned by what he saw. The planet was enormous, covered in vast cities that glowed like jewels. Hundreds of ships filled the space around it, more than Gregory had ever seen in one place. "This is their capital," Claire whispered beside him. "Imagine what their military bases must look like." The ceremony was held in a massive hall that could hold 10,000 beings. The Krell had invited representatives from a dozen other alien species. Gregory saw creatures he had only imagined in dreams. There were beings made of light, others that floated in tanks of liquid, and some that looked almost human except for their blue skin and extra arms. Vekran stood at the center of the hall and spoke to the gathered crowd. "Today we welcome humanity into our family. Today we celebrate a new friendship that will last forever." The humans applauded. Claire Bennett smiled and prepared to give her speech. Gregory felt a weight lift from his shoulders. Maybe he had been wrong to worry. Maybe the Krell truly were friends. Then the doors slammed shut. Krell soldiers poured into the hall from every entrance. They wore black armor and carried weapons that hummed with power. The other alien species scattered in panic, pushing toward the exits, but the Krell let them go. The weapons were pointed only at the humans. Vekran's friendly smile vanished. His yellow eyes went cold and hard. "Forgive the deception," he said, and his voice was different now. "There was no warmth in it, only ice, but we could not allow you to leave." "What is this?" Claire demanded, stepping forward. "We came in peace." "Peace," Vecrin repeated as if the word amused him. Yes, you came in peace. You offered friendship. You trusted us. That was your mistake. Gregory's hand moved toward his communicator, but a Krell soldier struck it away. Around the hall, every human was being surrounded and disarmed. Why? Gregory asked. The word came out like a gasp. Vecrin walked closer until he stood directly in front of Gregory. Because we have studied you. We have watched your history, read your books, analyzed your nature. You are young and weak now, but you will not stay that way. In 50 years, maybe less, you will be strong enough to challenge us. In 100 years, you might even defeat us. We never wanted to fight you, Gregory said. No, you want to explore and grow and spread across the galaxy, Vecrin replied. You want to build and create and expand. That is precisely why you are dangerous. The Krell Dominion has ruled this part of space for 1,000 years. We will not allow anyone to threaten that rule. Claire's face went pale. You are going to kill us. Not just you, Vecrin said calmly. All of you. Every human. We have calculated every possibility, and there is only one certainty. If humanity lives, eventually you will become a problem. Better to solve that problem now while you are still weak. At that moment, alarms began to sound across Krell Prime. Gregory saw it on a massive screen that showed space around the planet. Krell warships were jumping away into faster-than-light travel. Hundreds of them all at once, all heading in the same direction, toward human space. No, Gregory whispered. He lunged at Vecrin, but Krell soldiers grabbed him. He fought against them, screaming. Around the hall, other humans tried to resist. Commander Lisa Grant actually managed to knock down 2 soldiers before they stunned her. But there were too many Krell, and they were too strong. One by one, every human was subdued and dragged away to cells deep beneath the capital. Gregory was thrown into a small room with a single window. He pressed his face against the glass and watched as more Krell ships departed. He thought of Earth, of his wife and daughter in Denver. He thought of Diana Harper on the Liberty, unaware of what was coming. He thought of the 3 colonies, New Terra and Horizon Station and Reach, full of families who believed they were safe. A Krell guard stood outside his cell. Gregory could not stay silent. Please, he said. There are children on those worlds, families, innocent people who never hurt anyone. The guard looked at him with those cold yellow eyes. Your species' innocence is not relevant. Only your potential threat matters. If you do this, Gregory said quietly, if you murder billions of innocent people, someone will make you pay for it. The guard actually laughed. Who will make us pay? Your species will be extinct. There will be no one left to seek revenge. Gregory pressed his hand against the glass. His voice was steady, but his eyes were filled with tears. Then you do not understand humans at all. We remember. We always remember. And if even one of us survives, we will never stop coming for you. The guard walked away, still chuckling at the idea. Gregory Mason stood alone in his cell and watched through the window as the last of the Krell attack fleet departed. He watched and he remembered every ship, every detail. If he died here, he would die remembering. And somehow, some way, he believed that memory would live on. Behind him, locked in other cells, 199 other humans did the same. They watched and they remembered, and they made a silent promise to every human who would die in the next few hours. The Krell had made their choice. Now humanity would make theirs. 3 years had passed since the Krell betrayal, and Admiral Vincent Cole had learned to live with the taste of defeat. He stood in the command center of the Defiant, the last human carrier still in operation, and studied the tactical display with tired eyes. The numbers told a story no human wanted to hear. Of the 4 billion people who had lived across human space before the attack, only 1.2 billion remained. New Terra was gone, its atmosphere burned away by Krell weapons. Reach had fallen 6 months ago after a desperate last stand. Only Earth and Horizon Station still held out, and both were slowly dying. Sir, Krell patrol detected in Sector 7, reported Lieutenant Kevin Shaw from his station. He was 23 years old and looked 50. The war had aged them all. How many ships? Vincent asked. 5 cruisers and a battleship, Vincent calculated quickly. The Defiant had 3 destroyers as escorts, including the Vengeance commanded by Captain Nicole Brooks. Against 6 Krell ships, they would lose. Against any Krell force of equal size, they would lose. The enemy had better shields, faster engines, and weapons that could punch through human armor like paper. Pull back to the Ross Belt, Vincent ordered. Hide in the asteroids. This was how humanity fought now. They hid. They ran, they struck when the enemy was weak and fled when the enemy was strong. It was no way to win a war. But Vincent was not trying to win anymore. He was trying to survive long enough to make the Krell pay. Captain Nicole Brooks brought the Vengeance alongside the Defiant once they reached the safety of the asteroid field. She came aboard for the command meeting along with Commander Peter Hall, who led Strike Force Gamma, the best pilots humanity had left. "We lost another supply depot yesterday," Nicole reported. She had a scar across her left cheek from a boarding action 2 years ago. "The Krell are systematically destroying every resource cache we have." "They are trying to starve us out," Peter added. He was a big man with hard eyes and hands that never stopped moving. "They know they cannot find all our hiding spots, so they are making sure we have nothing to eat when we do hide." Vincent looked at the map of human space. Red markers showed Krell positions. There were hundreds of them. Blue markers showed human forces. "There were 17. What about Protocol Exodus?" Nicole asked quietly. Vincent nodded. Protocol Exodus was humanity's final backup plan. If they could not win, they would at least ensure humanity's survival. Automated ships, small and nearly undetectable, were being prepared in secret facilities across Earth. Each ship carried DNA samples from thousands of humans, along with complete databases of human knowledge, history, and culture. "The first wave launches in 3 weeks," Vincent said. 20 ships heading in different directions to different galaxies. "Even if the Krell wipe us out completely, humanity will return. Maybe in 1,000 years, maybe in 10,000. But we will return." Peter slammed his fist on the table. "I did not join the military to run away. I joined to fight." "We are fighting," Vincent said calmly. "We are fighting with the only weapon that matters anymore: time. Every day we survive, every ship we build, every person we keep alive is a victory." But even as he said it, Vincent knew the truth. Time was running out. Earth was under constant blockade. The Krell had surrounded the planet with enough firepower to turn it into a second New Terra. They were waiting, patient as always, for humanity to use up the last of their resources and surrender. On Earth, in a facility buried 3 miles beneath the Rocky Mountains, Dr. Karen Price was working on humanity's real last hope. She had not seen sunlight in 2 years. She had not seen her family in 3. She lived in a cramped room with a small bed and spent every waking hour in the laboratory. "Show me the results again," she told her assistant, Jake Morrison. Jake pulled up the data on the screen. The quantum virus successfully infiltrated the test system. It spread through the entire network in 4.3 seconds. "But did it work on the Krell implants?" Karen asked. Another assistant, Amy Sullivan, answered that question. "We only have 2 captured implants to test on, but yes." The virus interfaced with both of them and caused complete neural shutdown. Karen felt a surge of hope so strong it almost hurt. Every Krell military officer had neural implants. They used them for communication, for ship control, for coordination of their entire military structure. If the virus worked, if they could get it into the Krell network, it would spread to every implant in their military. "How long until we are ready?" Karen asked. 3 months, Jake said. "Maybe 4. We need to test it more, make sure it is stable." "We do not have 4 months, Karen replied. She had received the latest intelligence that morning. The Krell were preparing for a final assault on Earth. They were bringing in fresh fleets, enough ships to overwhelm any defense humanity could mount. The message arrived 3 days later. It came on every frequency, transmitted across all of human space in dozens of languages. Ambassador Vekran's face appeared on every screen, his yellow eyes as cold as ever. "Humans of Earth and Horizon Station, your resistance is over. You have fought bravely, but you cannot win. We offer you one final chance. Surrender unconditionally, become subjects of the Krell Dominion, and you will be allowed to live as servants and workers. Refuse, and we will burn your remaining worlds just as we burned New Terra." The message played on repeat for 6 hours. Across Earth, in bunkers and shelters and desperate hideouts, humans watched and listened. Some cried, some raged, but most were simply tired. Admiral Vincent Cole sat in his command chair aboard the Defiant and watched the message with no expression on his face. When it finished, he opened a channel to every human ship and station that could still receive transmissions. "This is Admiral Cole," he said. His voice was steady and calm. "You have all heard the Krell offer. Surrender or die. Slavery or extinction. I am sure some of you are tempted. I am sure some of you think that survival, even as slaves, is better than death. He paused, and when he spoke again, his voice was hard as iron. Those people are wrong. Our ancestors did not crawl out of caves and build civilizations so their descendants could bow to alien masters. They did not reach for the stars so we could spend the rest of human history as servants to the beings who murdered 2 billion of our people. Vincent stood up from his chair. The Krell think we will surrender because we are weak. They think we will accept slavery because we are afraid. Let me tell them something they have not learned yet. Humans are afraid. We are terrified. But we are also stubborn, and we are vindictive, and we never forget. He looked directly into the camera. So here is my answer to Ambassador Vecren and the Krell Dominion. Never. We will never surrender. We will never bow. We will never forgive. And if you think we are beaten, then come and finish the job. But know this. Every ship you lose, every soldier who dies, every drop of Krell blood that is spilled will be our message to the galaxy. We will be your nightmare. We will be your mistake. And even if we all die, even if not one human survives, our ghosts will haunt you forever. The transmission ended. For a moment, there was silence across the human fleet. Then slowly, one by one, every ship signaled their acknowledgement. They would not surrender. They would fight to the last. Vincent sat back down and opened a private channel to Dr. Karen Price. How long do you need? 3 months, Karen said. You have it, Vincent promised. He began issuing orders. Every human ship, every weapon, every pilot who could still fly would be thrown into one massive operation. Operation Broken Arrow. It was a suicide mission designed to do one thing and one thing only: break the Krell blockade of Earth and buy Dr. Price the time she needed. Captain Nicole Brooks did not hesitate when she received the orders. Commander Peter Hall and his pilots prepared their fighters with grim determination. Across the human fleet, soldiers and engineers and commanders all understood what was being asked of them. They were being asked to die so that humanity might live. The attack came at dawn on Earth, though time meant little in space. 90% of the remaining human military threw themselves at the Krell blockade. It was not a battle, it was a sacrifice. The Defiant led the charge with Vincent Cole at the helm. The great carrier's shields were already failing, hit by dozens of Krell weapons, but Vincent kept pushing forward. Around him, human ships exploded in bright flashes. The Vengeance took a direct hit that tore off half its hull. But Nicole Brooks kept firing until her ship's reactors overloaded. Peter Hall and Strike Force Gamma flew their fighters into the teeth of the Krell fleet. They dodged and weaved and struck at weak points. One by one, the fighters were destroyed, but they took Krell ships with them. Vincent saw his ship was about to explode. The Defiant had taken too much damage. Alarms were screaming and fire was spreading through every deck. He could have ordered an evacuation, could have tried to save some of his crew. Instead, he pointed the dying carrier at the largest Krell battlecruiser and pushed the engines to full power. All hands, brace for impact, he said calmly. Then he opened one final transmission to every human who could hear. We will never forgive, we will never forget, and we will never stop coming for you. The Defiant rammed into the Krell battlecruiser at full speed. Both ships vanished in an explosion that lit up space like a new star. The battle lasted 6 hours. When it was over, 90% of the human... 5 years after the betrayal, the Krell Dominion declared victory. Their news broadcast showed images of ruined human ships and burned colonies. Ambassador Vecren stood before the Galactic Assembly and announced that the human threat had been eliminated. A dangerous species has been contained, he said with satisfaction. The humans are broken. They hide in their last cities on Earth, waiting for the end. Soon even that will be over. The other alien species in the galaxy watched and said nothing. The Krell Republic had tried to speak out once, suggesting that genocide was wrong. The Krell had responded by positioning warships near Krell space. The Krell fell silent. So did everyone else. But the Krell were wrong. Humanity was not broken. Humanity had simply gone underground. Deep beneath the Rocky Mountains, General Raymond Hughes commanded what remained of human military coordination. He was 56 years old with gray hair and a lined face. He had lost his wife and 2 children in the initial attack. That loss had turned him into something hard and cold and absolutely focused. Show me the latest intelligence, he said to his second-in-command, Colonel Walter Price, who was Karen Price's brother. Walter pulled up a holographic display. Red dots showed Krell positions across what had once been human space. They have gotten comfortable. Their patrols are predictable. Their supply lines are stretched thin. Good, Raymond said quietly. Comfort makes you vulnerable. Across Earth, humanity had built a massive network of underground facilities connected by tunnels that ran hundreds of miles in every direction. Factories built weapons and ships in secret. Farms grew food under artificial lights. Training centers prepared new soldiers to replace those who had fallen. And every day, small teams of humans slipped out to strike at the Krell and then vanish before retaliation could come. Kelly Martin led one of these teams. She had been a teacher before the war, instructing high school students in history. Now she taught the Krell about fear. Her team of 12 operated in the ruins of Chicago, striking at Krell supply convoys and disappearing into the tunnels. "Target approaching," whispered Marcus Lee, her second in command. Marcus had been an engineer and still was, but now he engineered ambushes instead of buildings. Kelly watched through her scope as a Krell transport moved down what had once been Michigan Avenue. The street was empty, the buildings on both sides burned and broken. The Krell thought the area was clear. "Now," Kelly said softly. Explosions erupted on both sides of the transport. The vehicle lurched to a stop, its shields flickering. Before the Krell soldiers inside could react, Kelly's team opened fire with weapons they had built themselves from captured Krell technology. The fight lasted 30 seconds. When it was over, the transport was destroyed and Kelly's team was already moving into the tunnels. By the time Krell reinforcements arrived, there was nothing to find except smoke and bodies. "Any casualties?" Kelly asked as they moved through the darkness. "None," Marcus reported. "Clean hit. They'd been doing this for 3 years. Hit and run. Strike and vanish." The Krell called them terrorists. Kelly called it survival. Far from Earth, on Horizon Station hidden deep in the Veil Nebula, Captain Nicole Brooks had survived the destruction of the Vengeance. She had escaped in a life pod and been rescued by a human salvage team. Now she commanded the station and trained the next generation of pilots. "Again," she told the young pilot in the simulator. His name was Joey Grant, and he was Lisa Grant's nephew. He had been 12 when the war started. Now he was 17 and one of the best pilots Nicole had ever seen. Joey pushed his simulated fighter through a complex series of maneuvers, dodging imaginary Krell fire and returning shots of his own. When the simulation ended, his score was nearly perfect. "Good," Nicole said, "but not good enough. The Krell do not give you second chances. Every mistake is fatal. Remember that." Joey nodded seriously. He remembered. Everyone remembered. That was the thing about this war. No one forgot anything. Every face of every person who had died was burned into the survivors' memories. Nicole walked through the station corridors and saw the same determination on every face she passed. These people had lost everything. Their homes, their families, their old lives. All they had left was each other and the burning desire to make the Krell pay for what they had done. In the deepest level of the facility beneath the Rockies, Dr. Karen Price was ready. It had taken 3 years longer than she had hoped, but the quantum virus was complete. She looked at the data one more time, checking every line of code, every possible failure point. "It will work," Jake Morrison said. He had been with her through everything, surviving on 4 hours of sleep a night and coffee that tasted like oil. "It has to work," Amy Sullivan added. She looked exhausted, dark circles under her eyes, but her hands were steady as she ran the final tests. Karen turned to face General Hughes, who had come down to the lab for the final briefing. "The virus is ready. Once it is uploaded to the Krell military network, it will spread through every neural implant in their entire command structure. Admirals, captains, tactical officers, everyone who runs their military will be disabled simultaneously." "For how long?" Raymond asked. "Permanently," Karen said. "The virus does not just disable the implants. It fuses with them, makes them unusable. They would have to physically remove the implants from every officer's brain, and most would die in the process." Raymond studied the data she showed him. "What is the delivery method?" "Someone has to physically access the central military network on Krell Prime," Karen explained. "The virus cannot be transmitted remotely. It is too complex and the Krell have too many safeguards. So we need to infiltrate their capital," Raymond said slowly. "The most heavily defended planet in their entire empire." "Yes," Karen said simply. Raymond was quiet for a long moment. Then he said, "I will put together a team." "The team is already assembled. said a voice from the doorway. Claire Bennett walked into the lab. She looked nothing like the diplomat who had gone to Krell Prime 5 years ago. That woman had worn elegant clothes and smiled easily. This woman wore combat gear and had eyes like winter ice. I escaped from their prisons 2 years ago, Claire said. I have spent the last 2 years studying everything about Krell Prime. I know their security, their patterns, their weaknesses. I can get to the central network. Raymond looked at her. This is a one-way mission. Even if you succeed, you will not make it out. I know, Claire said calmly. I made my peace with that a long time ago. 2 others stepped into the lab behind her. Nathan Bell and Lucy Carter were both special forces, veterans of a dozen desperate battles. Nathan was tall and quiet. Lucy was small and fierce. Both had volunteered knowing they would not return. When do we leave? Nathan asked. The stolen Krell scout ship slipped through space like a shadow. Claire sat in the pilot's seat wearing a Krell uniform they had taken from a captured officer. The uniform fit poorly, but it would pass a casual inspection. Approaching the outer perimeter, she reported. Her hands were steady on the controls, but her heart was racing. This was it. 5 years of suffering and loss all came down to this moment. Krell Patrol hailing us, Lucy said from the communications station. Claire activated the comm and spoke in perfect Krell language. She had spent 2 years learning it in their prisons, listening to guards talk, memorizing every word. Scout Vessel 749 returning from patrol. Requesting clearance to dock. There was a pause. Claire held her breath. If they were discovered now, it was over. Clearance granted, the Krell voice responded. Proceed to Dock 12. They slipped past the outer defenses and into the approaches to Krell Prime. The planet filled the view screen, beautiful and terrible. Somewhere down there was the hall where humanity had been betrayed. Somewhere down there were the cells where humans had died slowly while their species was murdered. Claire's hands tightened on the controls. I remember, she whispered. They docked and moved through the station wearing Krell uniforms with their faces hidden behind helmets. Nathan carried the virus in a small device disguised as a standard Krell datapad. Lucy walked rear guard, her eyes constantly scanning for threats. The central military complex was in the heart of the capital city. Getting there required passing through 3 security checkpoints. Claire talked them through the first 2 using her knowledge of Krell protocols and her perfect accent. At the 3rd checkpoint, a Krell officer looked at them more closely. Remove your helmets, he ordered. Claire knew this was it. She glanced at Nathan and Lucy. They both nodded slightly. Now, Claire said. Nathan threw a flash grenade. The checkpoint exploded in light and sound. Lucy opened fire, dropping 2 guards before they could react. Claire ran forward, pulling a weapon from beneath her uniform. Alarms began to sound throughout the complex. Krell soldiers poured into the corridors from every direction. Go, Nathan shouted. He took up a position at the corridor entrance, firing controlled bursts to hold back the enemy. I will buy you time. Claire wanted to argue, but there was no time. She grabbed Lucy and ran deeper into the complex. Behind them, Nathan's weapon roared continuously. He held that position for 3 minutes, killing a dozen Krell soldiers before they finally overwhelmed him. His last words, transmitted on the human frequency, were simple. For Earth. Claire and Lucy made it to the central computer core. Krell soldiers were right behind them, weapons firing. Luke, the Krell Dominion fell in a single day. General Raymond Hughes received the confirmation at 0600 hours Earth time. Dr. Karen Price's virus had worked even better than hoped. Across 70 star systems, every Krell military officer with a neural implant was disabled. Ships drifted without commanders. Orbital defense platforms went dark. Command centers fell silent. The most powerful military in the galaxy had been reduced to chaos in minutes. All units, Raymond said into the comm system. His voice was calm, but his eyes blazed with something that had been building for 5 years. Execute Operation Reckoning. From hidden facilities across Earth, human ships emerged. They were not the desperate dying vessels of 3 years ago. These were new ships built in secret underground yards, equipped with weapons designed from captured Krell technology and improved by human engineering. From Horizon Station in the Vale Nebula, Captain Nicole Brooks led a fleet of fighters and destroyers. From hidden bases in the asteroid belts of a dozen systems, human forces that the Krell thought were destroyed came back to life. The counteroffensive was not a war of conquest. It was a war of justice. Commander Peter Hall had survived the Battle of Broken Arrow by pure luck. His fighter had been disabled and he had drifted in space for 6 days before being rescued. Now he led the boarding actions on Krell military stations. "Remember the rules," he told his team as they approached the first station. "Military targets only. Officers who participated in the attack on humanity are to be arrested, not killed. We are not the Krell. We do not commit genocide." His team breached the station through an airlock. The Krell inside were in disarray. Their command structure collapsed. Some tried to fight. Those who did were killed quickly and efficiently. Those who surrendered were taken prisoner. Peter found the station commander in his office, clutching his head and moaning. The neural implant had fused with his brain, causing constant pain but not death. Peter checked the commander's service record on a captured datapad. "You were at New Terra," Peter said quietly. "You commanded the bombardment that killed 2 million civilians." The Krell commander looked up with yellow eyes full of pain and fear. "I was following orders." "So were the guards at every concentration camp in human history," Peter replied. "That excuse did not work then, and it does not work now. You are under arrest for war crimes." Across Krell space, the same scene played out hundreds of times. Human forces struck at every Krell military installation simultaneously. They moved with precision and purpose, targeting specific ships and specific officers. Every Krell commander who had participated in the attack on humanity was being arrested. The Krell tried to resist, but without their command structure, their military was helpless. Ships tried to fight but had no coordination. Soldiers tried to defend but received no orders. The dominion that had ruled for 1,000 years crumbled like sand. On Krell Prime, General Raymond Hughes led the assault personally. He wanted to be there when they arrested Ambassador Vecren. The capital was in chaos. Krell civilians fled through the streets as human ships appeared in orbit. For the first time in their history, the Krell faced an enemy in their own skies, and they discovered what terror truly meant. Raymond's forces fought their way to the government complex where Vecren had his headquarters. The fighting was brief but intense. Krell soldiers without implants tried to defend their leader, but they were facing human troops who had trained for 5 years for this exact moment. When Raymond entered Vecren's office, he found the ambassador trying to access a communications console with shaking hands. The neural implant had left him partially paralyzed and in constant pain. "It is over," Raymond said. Vecren turned to face him. Even in defeat, even in pain, there was arrogance in those yellow eyes. "You think you have won? You think destroying our military changes anything? We are still 70 worlds. You are 1 planet and a few scattered colonies." Raymond walked closer until he stood directly in front of the alien who had orchestrated the deaths of billions. "You are right. You are 70 worlds. But you made a mistake. You thought military power was the only kind that mattered. You thought if you destroyed our fleets and burned our colonies, we would die." He pulled out a datapad and showed Vecren images. Human ships, dozens of them, hundreds, all built in secret over the last 5 years. "You forgot that humans are stubborn," Raymond continued. "You forgot that we never give up. You forgot that when you kill our loved ones, we do not surrender. We work harder. We get stronger. And we wait for our moment." Vecren stared at the images. "This is impossible. Our intelligence said you were broken." "Your intelligence saw what we wanted you to see," Raymond replied. "Every strike we made was calculated to make you comfortable. Every defeat was staged to make you think you had won. We have been preparing for this day since Admiral Cole bought us time with his life." He gestured, and human soldiers came forward to place restraints on Vecren. "You are under arrest for genocide, for war crimes, and for the murder of 2 billion humans. You will stand trial, and every being in this galaxy will hear what you did." As Vecren was led away, he looked back at Raymond. "What will you do to us?" Raymond's expression did not change. "What you should have done to us if you were actually the wise, ancient species you claimed to be. We will give you justice." The trials began 6 months later. They were held on Earth, in a massive court built specifically for this purpose. Every session was broadcast across the galaxy. The other alien species, the ones who had watched silently as humanity was attacked, now watched as humanity showed them a different way. The evidence was presented in careful detail. Recordings of Krell military meetings where they planned the attack. Communications logs showing the orders to destroy civilian targets. Testimony from Krell officers who had participated in the bombardment of New Terra and the other colonies. The galaxy watched as humans presented 2 billion names. Every person who had died was listed, their picture shown, their story told. It took weeks to present them all. The court never rushed. Each life mattered. Each death would be acknowledged. Ambassador Vekrin sat in the defendant's chair and listened to it all. At first he was defiant, insisting he had done what was necessary, but as the days turned to weeks, as the names kept coming and coming and coming, something broke inside him. Enough, he finally said, his voice cracking. I understand. I see what we did. The human judge, a woman named Helen Scott who had lost her entire family in the attacks, looked at him with cold eyes. You see now? After 5 years and 2 billion deaths, now you understand? We were afraid, Vekrin said quietly. We saw your potential and we were afraid of what you might become. So you decided to murder us all, Helen replied. You decided that fear justified genocide. Let me tell you something about humans, Ambassador. We understand fear. We have lived with fear every day since you betrayed us, but we did not let fear make us into monsters. The verdict came after 8 months of testimony. Vekrin and the Krell High Command were found guilty on all charges. The sentence was life imprisonment on a barren moon at the edge of Krell space, where they would live out their remaining years knowing that their empire was gone, and their legacy was one of shame. But humanity was not finished. Captain Nicole Brooks stood before the Galactic Assembly, the collection of alien species that governed interspecies relations. She had been chosen to deliver humanity's message because she had survived everything the Krell had thrown at her and had come back stronger. For 5 years we begged for help, Nicole said. Her voice echoed through the vast chamber. We sent messages to every species in this assembly. We asked for aid, for support, for even a simple statement condemning genocide. She looked at each alien representative in turn. You gave us nothing. The Trell Republic, who claims to value justice, stayed silent. The Sovan Unity, who preaches peace, watched us die. The McKen Coalition, who trades with everyone, cared only about their profits. A Trell ambassador stood to object. We wanted to help, but the Krell threatened us. And that threat was enough to watch billions die? Nicole asked. That threat was enough to let an entire species face extinction? The chamber was silent. Let me be clear, Nicole continued. Humanity does not hate you. We do not seek revenge against you, but we will never forget what you did. Or rather, what you did not do. From this day forward, humanity will never again rely on the mercy or justice of others. She activated a holographic display showing the new human military, ships, weapons, defensive installations across a dozen systems. We have learned our lesson. In this galaxy, only the strong survive. Only those willing to fight for themselves can be safe. We will be strong. We will fight. And we will remember. The other species shifted uncomfortably. Some looked guilty. Others looked afraid. All of them understood that something had changed. We will trade with you, Nicole said. We will maintain diplomatic relations. But do not expect friendship. Do not expect trust. You had your chance to stand with us and you chose to stand aside. We will not make that mistake when someone else faces what we faced. She turned to leave, then paused. One more thing. If any species ever attempts what the Krell attempted, if anyone ever again, 20 years after the betrayal, Earth was thriving again. General Raymond Hughes walked slowly through the Memorial Gardens in Washington, his steps careful and measured. He was 76 now, his hair completely white, his body marked by age and the burdens of command. But his mind was still sharp and his memories were crystal clear. The gardens stretched for miles, covering what had once been a military base. Along every path stood walls of black stone, and on those walls were carved 2 billion names. Every human who had died in the Krell attack was remembered here. Visitors could touch a name and hear a recording, a story about who that person had been. Raymond stopped at one wall and placed his hand on a name. Sarah Hughes, his wife. The recording played her laugh, her voice telling their children a bedtime story. He had listened to this recording 10,000 times and it still hurt. I kept my promise, he whispered to the stone. I made them pay, and I made sure it will never happen again. Behind him, someone cleared their throat. Raymond turned to see a young officer in the uniform of the Terran Defense Fleet. The uniform was sharp and clean, nothing like the desperate, patched-together gear they had worn during the war. Sir, Admiral Hall sends his respects and asks if you will be attending the ceremony, the officer said. Raymond nodded. Tell Peter I will be there. The ceremony was being held aboard the Remembrance, the flagship of the Memorial Fleet. This fleet had a unique purpose. It patrolled former Krell space, ensuring that the war criminals imprisoned on that barren moon stayed imprisoned, and that no new power rose to threaten others. The fleet was commanded by Admiral Lucy Carter, who had survived the mission to Krell Prime by luck and the skill of human medics who had rebuilt her from near death. She stood on the bridge of the Remembrance and watched the ships of the Memorial Fleet move through space in perfect formation. "All ships report ready for the ceremony," reported her first officer, a young woman named Betty Ford. Lucy nodded. Today was the day of memory, observed across all human space. For 1 full minute, every human ship, station, and settlement would pause to remember those who had been lost. The bridge crew stood at attention. Lucy looked at each of them. Most were young people who had been children when the war began. They had grown up in a world shaped by loss and determination. They understood why the Memorial Fleet existed and why humanity could never lower its guard. "Begin the ceremony," Lucy ordered. Across human space, billions of people stopped what they were doing. In cities on Earth and Mars and the rebuilt colonies, people stood silently. On ships traveling between the stars, crews gathered in common areas. In orbital stations and asteroid mines and research outposts, humans paused and remembered. On Earth, in the Institute of Remembrance that Dr. Karen Price had founded before her death 5 years ago, students studied the history of the war. They learned the names, the battles, the sacrifices. They learned why humanity's foreign policy was built on the principle of never again. Among those students was Marcus Lee's grandson, a bright kid named Alex who wanted to be a diplomat. He stood in front of the wall of names and tried to imagine 2 billion people. The number was so large it was almost meaningless. But then he touched a name at random and heard the recording. A woman's voice laughing as she talked about her daughter's first day of school. A life. A real person who had existed and mattered and was gone. Alex touched another name. A man describing his wedding day. Another name. A teenager talking about wanting to be a pilot. Name after name, story after story. Each one a universe of experiences and dreams, all ended by the Krell. "Do you understand now?" asked his teacher, a woman named Kelly Martin who had fought in the resistance during the war. "I think so," Alex said quietly. "Each name is a person. Each person is a reason why we can never forget." Kelly smiled sadly. "Exactly. That is why we remember, not because we want revenge, but because we owe it to them to never let it happen again." On the barren moon where the Krell war criminals were imprisoned, Ambassador Vekran sat in his cell and looked out at the gray landscape. He was old now, his scales dull and cracked, his yellow eyes dim. 20 years of imprisonment had broken something inside him that could never be repaired. Every day he thought about the decision that had led him here. Every day he remembered standing before the Galactic Assembly and welcoming humanity with false friendship. Every day he regretted it. A human guard brought his meal, the same tasteless but nutritious food he had eaten for 2 decades. The guard was young, probably born during the war. "Why do you keep us alive?" Vekran asked. It was a question he had asked many times, but he still did not understand the answer. The guard looked at him with cold eyes. "Because you need to live with what you did. Death would be too easy. This way, you have years to think about the 2 billion people you killed. You have years to know that your empire is gone, that your name is remembered as a monster, and that you can never undo what you did." The guard left, and Vekran was alone again with his thoughts and his regrets. On the Remembrance, the minute of silence ended. Admiral Lucy Carter took a breath and continued with the ceremony. Representatives from across human space were present, along with a few alien diplomats. Among them was a young Trell named Sovik, who had been assigned as an ambassador to humanity. He had spent the last year trying to understand humans, trying to repair the damage done when his people had remained silent during the genocide. After the ceremony, Sovik approached Lucy. "Admiral, may I ask you something?" Lucy looked at him with the same expression she gave everyone who was not human. Polite but distant, friendly but never warm. "Go ahead. Your fleet patrols former Krell space. Your military is the strongest in this part of the galaxy. But you have not conquered anyone. You have not expanded your territory. Why maintain such power if you do not intend to use it for conquest?" Lucy walked to a viewport and gestured for Sovik to follow. She pointed to the memorial wall visible on a nearby station. "Do you see those names?" "Yes," Sovik said. 2 billion people died because humanity was weak and trusting. 2 billion lives ended because we believed that other species would value justice and life the way we did. We were wrong, she turned to face Sovik directly. We maintain this fleet not because we want to conquer, but because we learned that the universe does not reward the peaceful with peace. We learned that mercy shown to enemies is often mistaken for weakness. We learned that some beings will always choose violence if they think they can win. But surely after 20 years you can let go of the past, Sovik suggested carefully. Lucy's expression hardened. Let go? You think we should forget? You think we should just move on and pretend that 2 billion people did not die while species like yours watched and did nothing? Sovik stepped back from the anger in her voice. I meant no offense. None taken, Lucy said, though her voice was still cold. But understand this. We do not maintain this military out of hatred. We maintain it out of love. Love for those who died, love for those who survived, and love for the future generations who will never have to face what we faced. She pointed to the ships of the memorial fleet. Every ship in this fleet exists because someone we loved is gone. Every weapon we carry is a promise that we will protect others from suffering the same fate. Every patrol we run is a reminder that humanity remembers. Sovik was quiet for a moment. Then he asked the question that had been bothering him since he arrived. Will humanity ever forgive? Lucy looked at him for a long moment. Forgiveness is a gift we give to those who show remorse, who try to make amends, who prove they have changed. The Krell have shown none of these things. They regret being caught being defeated. They do not regret what they did. She paused, then continued. But even if they did show remorse, even if they spent every day for the rest of their lives begging for forgiveness, some acts are beyond it. You do not forgive genocide. You remember it. You learn from it. And you make sure it never happens again. Sovik understood then. He had been hoping to build a real alliance between his people and humanity. But that was not possible. Not yet, maybe not ever. The best his people could hope for was professional cooperation. Humanity had learned to trust only themselves. On Earth, in the home that Admiral Peter Hall shared with his wife and 3 children, the family gathered for dinner. Peter was 58 now, still strong but showing the marks of age and old injuries. His children were teenagers, born after the war ended. His oldest daughter, Christine, asked the question that young people always asked. Dad, do you think we will ever have another war? Peter thought carefully before answering. I hope not. That is why we train so hard. Why we maintain the fleets. Why we never forget. The best way to prevent war is to be so strong that no one dares to start one. But what if someone does? His son Martin asked. Then we will do what we did before, Peter said simply. We will fight. We will never surrender, and we will make them regret starting the fight. His wife Emily, who had been a civilian during the war, spoke up. But we will also remember who we are. We are not the Krell. We do not commit genocide. We do not target civilians. We fight with honor even when our enemies do not. Peter nodded. Your mother is right. The Krell made us harder, but they did not make us into monsters. We are still human. We still have values.